I continued to look for a media outlet and saw where the young man from Washington State who had to travel to the East Coast by himself to take a U.S. government polygraph exam to prove he was not part of the 9/11 attacks. He passed. I thought if he could get media coverage for taking a polygraph exam, maybe I could. So I contacted a Mr. Weller, who is a retired Canadian Army officer who was trained by the U.S. Army as a military polygraph examiner, and the exam I was given is the same one the U.S. government uses. I met the U.S. government standard for telling the truth and passed. In August, I again faxed Representative McKinney's offices with the 1976 U.S. military study information, Mr. Weller's polygraph exam results, and a note that I would hand-deliver a copy to her if that is what it took to get a reply. McKinney had her staff send me a one-line political party reply and has refused to have any personal contact with me since I sent her the U.S. government prior knowledge information she came on national television and cried out for over 7 years ago. I found this suspicious since people were saying that she had committed political suicide by asking for U.S. government prior knowledge information. But I would find out later about the censorship program Cynthia McKinney had in store for me and my U.S. Defense Department information. If Cynthia McKinney had contacted me back after I sent her the 1976 U.S. military study information in April 2002 for more information and then went back on national television and asked for the other participants from Sea Battery to come forward with their U.S. military study information, she could have prevented the Iraq invasion and the loss of over 1 million Iraqi lives, because the U.S. Congress would have been too busy explaining why they did not improve U.S. air travel security when they knew it needed to be done in the 1970s to be able to conduct any kind of military operation, let alone the 100-year war that Vice President Cheney said it is. But that would have required Cynthia McKinney to publicly admit that she did not do her #1 governmental priority of national security during the 5 terms she served in Congress prior to the September 11, 2001 attacks. So to cover her own ass, McKinney censored my U.S. federal court testimony information because it shows that she is legally responsible for the September 11 attacks happening. I contacted George Bush's church's Washington, D.C. lobbying office with my 1976 U.S. military study information, and Janet Horman contacted me to send her a copy so she could get it to Democrat Senator Graham for the first U.S. government 9/11/01 investigation that was taking place at the time. This was prior to George Bush's church refusing to support Bush's invasion of Iraq. I have asked the 9/11 Truth Movement if anyone in the 9/11 Truth Movement had their personal first-hand U.S. government prior knowledge information submitted to the first U.S. government 9/11 investigation, and not one 9/11 truther replied that they did. But they have censored that I did. Why does the 9/11 Truth Movement censor the truth just to sell their fiction books and movies? I contacted 9/11 families for Peaceful Tomorrows with my 1976 U.S. military study information, and they referred me to a Kyle Hentz, who was supposed to be conducting a citizen's investigation. I wrote him and we talked on the phone, where he asked me to be part of his first news conference that would take place in March 2003. And I was to wait for his next communication to tell me when I needed to travel to New York City. It never arrived, but I thought it was just taking him longer to set up than he thought. Then I see where he had his news conference and had dropped me for Cynthia McKinney. I wrote to him that she was one of the U.S. elected officials who was responsible for improving U.S. air travel security during her 5 terms in Congress prior to the September 11, 2001 attacks, but did not do it. Kyle wrote back that it did not matter to him since Cynthia McKinney had done other things for him. Kyle hence has never publicly stated what these things that Cynthia McKinney did for him are. That justifies him censoring my information for Cynthia McKinney, but anyone with any knowledge of the wrong workings of Washington, D.C. knows that when someone does something for you, it means they gave you money or arranged to have you receive cash donations from their political party supporters. This angered me so much I deleted his email, or I would have that one for you today also. Years later, I will have a public personal encounter with Kyle Hentz to be described later. Also in January 2003, I received the written support of the Honorable John McCallum, Canada's Minister of National Defence. I like to point out that Mr. McCallum did not get into political trouble for giving me his written support like the German woman government official who compared Bush to Hitler and was forced to resign. Instead, he was named the official Canadian government announcer for the Rolling Stones concert that was broadcast live from Toronto to the U.S. and Canadian troops in Afghanistan, and then was promoted to Canadian Finance Minister. When I received the written support of the highest-ranking military representative of our closest ally, Canada, I contacted the 9/11 Truth Movement websites that were online at the time with this information. None of them replied, so I thought they were just not interested in that type of information. Then a few months later, I saw these same websites posting that the 9/11 Truth Movement had gotten the support of a prior Minister of National Defence of Canada. I contacted them again and asked them why they had censored the fact that I had the written support of the sitting Minister of National Defence of Canada. None of them replied why they censored my information. For your information, having the support of the sitting Minister of National Defence of Canada means that I have the written support of the Canadian government, while having the support of a prior Minister of National Defence is just having the support of a regular citizen. Are you beginning to see how the 9/11 Truth Movement censors factual information while promoting for profit the sale of their fiction theories? A couple of months later, I got the written support of Carolyn Parrish, MP and former Vice Chair to the International NATO Executive, who you might know better as the Canadian elected official who stomped on the George Bush doll for the Canadian TV show This Hour Has 22 Minutes. 9/11 Truth Movement members publicly commented positively about this action of hers, but have censored that I have her written support for getting the 1976 U.S. military study information published. In July 2003, I was forwarded an email from a Mick Stewart who he got from a Cynthia McKinney supporter, Glenn Ford, co-publisher of the Black Commentator magazine, saying that I am a Confederate from Georgia who is worshiping his skin and flag and should be organized against.